Hello, everyone, and welcome to our ninth and final episode of the regular season for the 2025 OSAA High School Football Officials Training Video, our Clips of the Week. We're not done for the year. We'll be back for the playoffs, but this is our last episode of the regular season. Good luck to all of the teams and the officials in this ninth and final week. We have a lot of clips to look at, so let's jump into this week's action. So the first several clips we're going to look at all involve the potential for ineligible players downfield. And as a reminder, regardless if you're using the center judge position or the umpire position, our wings are still primary. Of course, it can be easier for an umpire to pick this up than a center judge, of course, but again, our wings are still primary on this call. So I'm going to let this one play. And just ask yourself if you have an ineligible player downfield on this play. And at first glance, you might think to yourself that we do have an ineligible player downfield. At the time that the pass is caught, not only is the receiver, the running back, beyond the line of scrimmage, we have a lineman that is more than 2 yards past the line of scrimmage as well. But the key on this play is to remember that the snapshot in time that we're interested in is when the pass is released. And we're going to see here that when the ball is released from the quarterback, we do not have any players that are beyond the expanded neutral zone, and thus we're not going to have an ineligible player downfield. Now, one thing we could potentially have in this case, because the lineman is beyond the line of scrimmage, we could potentially have offensive pass interference. But again, we're going to notice the timing here that the block by the lineman is after the ball has been caught by the running back here. So this is just simply a very well-timed play by the offense and a really good job here by the line judge to not throw a flag for an ineligible player downfield. Really good job. So let's compare that to this play. Now, this is in the fourth quarter of a running clock game, and sometimes our focus might be not where we want it. But on this play, we're going to get a very late call from our line judge for an ineligible player downfield. Now, a couple of things. If you're going to call ineligible downfield, this needs to be an immediate flag, throw it up in the air to get everyone's attention. But you have to continue to officiate the play. There's potential bad blocks here. There could be a fumble. All sorts of things could happen here. Now, with that said, if we go back to the beginning of the play and we watch it unfold, we're going to notice that this pass is clearly caught behind the line of scrimmage, which was the 42, and it was caught at the 40. So this is not a foul for an ineligible player downfield. So just remind yourself that if that pass was caught behind the line, we have no foul. So we'll watch a couple of clips now with crew using the umpire position. And again, the wing is primary, but obviously an umpire could also have a pretty good feel whether or not we have an ineligible player downfield. And on this play, we're going to get a flag from the umpire as well as our head linesman. And so again, if we go back to the beginning here, this makes it a little easier that we're starting on a big line. We're starting on the 35. So we know our expanded neutral zone is to the 37. Now, we don't necessarily want to be too technical on this. We can allow a little bit of leniency there, but the 37 is the end of our expanded neutral zone. And we're going to see here again that when the ball is released, we're going to have a player that is 3+ yards downfield. And so this is a correct flag. But again, we want to just remind ourselves that it's when the pass is released is when we're looking at that snapshot in time. And again, we do have someone that is 3 yards or more downfield that shouldn't be. So this is technically the correct call. So same crew, same game. And again, we're on a big line here. So the 30-yard line is our line of scrimmage. The expanded neutral zone goes to the 32. And again, we're going to do is pause here when the quarterback releases the ball. And we're going to notice here that there are no ineligibles beyond the 30-yard line at the time the pass is released. Now, this pass is actually caught beyond the line. So much like an earlier play here, we want to make sure that there's no one blocking near that receiver that shouldn't be, and we don't have that. So then this is also a legal play, and we don't get a flag here, and that's correct by this crew. So excellent job on both of these plays by this crew. Well, this next clip is something I don't think I'd ever see, but we have a defensive pass interference call correctly called by our center judge. So if we look here at this formation, we have one receiver to the left, which is our line judge's side, and then we have a tight end and two receivers to the right. The back judge would be keen on the two outside receivers, and our head linesman would be keen on the tight end. And what we're going to notice here is that we're going to get a quick pass towards the receiver, that is towards our line judge's side, which is their only key. And what we're going to notice here is that we clearly get pass blocking by the line. So as a line judge, we want to go straight to that receiver. And we're going to notice that they get pulled down. And our center judge happened to be looking in this direction. And we're going to look at this from the end zone view. And again, we don't necessarily want the center judge looking at this, but we're glad they did. This is clearly defensive pass interference. Our line judge should have been all over this, and unfortunately wasn't, but our center judge saved the day with a very rare defensive pass interference call by a center judge. So on this play, we're going to have two personal fouls, only one of them that was called. So first off, let's watch the contact against the passer, and we're going to get roughing the passer correctly called by our referee. So good job staying with the passer, and we're going to get a late hit and a correct flag. But now let's watch the action towards the back judge, and we're going to have a hit against a defenseless player that wasn't called. And so we want to make sure as a back judge, we're following that ball and then the contact afterwards. It's easy once the pass is incomplete to take our eyes off of that. We want good eye discipline. The defender doesn't use open hands. They don't wrap up, and this is not a play on the ball. So we should have had two flags on this play. Again, one for roughing and then one here for a hit against a defenseless player. So on this play, we're going to get a long pass completion and run, and our center judge does a good job following the play and following the action behind it. And what we're going to notice here is right around the 38-yard line, we're going to get a personal foul. We're going to get unnecessary roughness for this hit by a member of the offense. Now, great job here by the center judge for picking this up. We're going to notice their flag goes to about the 31 or 32-yard line. And it's important because this is our spot of penalty enforcement. So if we had gotten the flag correct and got it around the 38, we'd be going back to the A47. Now with the flag going down to around the 31, they're going to bring it back to the 46. Now if we go back to the beginning, we're going to notice it's 1st and 10 from the A45. So the crew enforced this 15 yards from where the flag wound up, and it went back to the 46. But they reset the change to 1st and 10, which is incorrect. Because the penalty enforcement brought the ball back short of the line to gain, with where the crew had the flag, it should be 2nd and 1. However, we should really bring this ball back to about the A47, in which case we would have 1st down and 8. So just a reminder that if the foul and the enforcement of the penalty brings the ball back short of the line to gain, it's not 1st and 10. We would replay the down with the distance to the line to gain to go. So on this play, we want to talk about penalty enforcement and what to do when we actually are going to have a penalty decline. So on this play, we're going to have defensive pass interference called by the line judge as well as the back judge. And the receiver makes a fantastic catch, and they're going to go out of bounds around the 38. So again, the line judge rules that the receiver catches this in bounds. And so they're obviously going to decline the penalty. Now, before we talk about that, we want to watch what the player does after they get up. And they're going to spin the ball right next to their opponent on the ground. Now, while we allow some spontaneous celebration, this type of act, according to our SRI, should be flagged immediately as an unsportsmanlike. We don't want a player spinning the ball like this with their opponent on the ground. Now, they didn't call that. So on this play now, we have a long gain, and we're clearly going to have the penalty for defensive pass interference declined. So as a reminder, the player went out of bounds at the 38-yard line. So when we look at the next play, the ball is at the 42. So no one held the spot of the end of the completion. So when we are doing our pre-games as a crew, we want to talk about our mechanics when it comes to penalty enforcement. We only need one of those two officials to go to the referee and tell him what you had, since you have the same call. One of those two officials needs to hold the end of the play to make sure that we're not giving the team an extra 4 yards like we did here. Now, while we're on this play, let's just watch this play. And what we're going to notice here is that we are going to get a backwards pass. And we're going to notice that our line judge is going to punch backwards, and our head linesman is going to punch forward. So as a reminder, per the Oregon mechanics book, the wing in which direction the pass is going toward is responsible for determining whether or not it is a forward or backward pass. So on a play like this, the pass went towards our head linesman. It is our head linesman's call on whether or not this is a forward pass. This is not a good look when we have conflicting signal from our two wing officials. So now we get a similar play. This is much later in the game, but we're going to get a backwards pass that's very similar to the one before. And what we're going to notice again is that our line judge is punching backwards. And again, this is not their call. Our head linesman isn't doing anything. So we're not sure exactly what call they have. They didn't punch backwards, and they're not calling this an incomplete. This play is actually blown dead by our center judge. So just a reminder that on swing passes like this, that the primary official is the official in which the direction of the pass is headed towards. So this isn't the best film, but it's also a similar play, so I thought I'd show it. And what we're going to see here is, again, we're going to get a swing pass out. It does look like the pass does travel slightly backwards. The key here, though, and it's very hard to see on film, I understand, is that our head linesman immediately punches backwards. So again, good job by this crew using the Oregon mechanic and having the wing in which direction the ball is headed towards be responsible for making this call. Our line judge doesn't do anything, which is fine in this case. They're not primary. And then there's no whistles. The defense picks up the ball and they run it back for a score. So mechanically, this was correct, and it does appear that the ball did travel slightly backwards. So this clip is from a game I was the referee on a couple of weeks ago. And unfortunately, we're going to miss at least two different potential fouls on this play. Now, this is the opening kickoff to the second half, and kudos to the coach to let us know that there may be an onside kick coming. So that allowed us to be prepared mentally for this. Now, what we're going to notice is that when we have an onside kick, there is no leniency for encroachment by the kicking team. In this case, the restraining line, the 40-yard line, is a plane of glass. We should have blown this play immediately dead for encroachment by K. Then we're going to see the ball bounce. There's the potential here for an illegal block by the kicking team before the ball goes 10 yards. It's hard to tell whether the ball has gone 10 yards or if there's even really any contact by a member of the kicking team. And then the ball is recovered by a member of the kicking team. Now, again, I was the referee on this, and from my vantage point, I thought we had a pop-up kick. And after the play, I came up to our center judge and our back judge, and they said, no, we didn't. But now when we look at this from the end zone view, it's clear we had an illegal pop-up kick. This ball goes extremely high and well over the head of the player of the return team here. So we should have had two different fouls on this play that would have blown this play immediately dead. First, we had encroachment by a member of the kicking team, and secondly, we had an illegal pop-up kick. Those two fouls simply can't be ignored, and wish we would have got them on this game. So looking at another onside kick. Now, first thing we want to look at is the player for the return team is clearly encroaching as well. And we see the center judge is going to try to get them to come back, and they haven't. And he kind of just gives a shrug of the shoulders. So what's interesting about this is, if you'll notice this, the ball's being kicked from the 35. That's because the play before we had encroachment by the kicking team. Now, rather than just simply shrugging our shoulders, we should blow this dead immediately. Encroachment by either team before the ball is kicked is a dead ball foul. We shut this down immediately. Now, next thing we want to look at here is the formation by the kicking team. Our Oregon SRI wants this play shut down as well. This is an illegal kicking formation. It's impossible to tell whether or not the kicking team has more than 4 players or more on either side of the ball when it's kicked. This should also be shut down immediately for an illegal formation by the kicking team. You have the full support of the SRI and the OSAA to shut this type of play down. Now, lastly, we have an illegal pop-up kick on this one as well. Now, while there's not a ton of force applied to this kick, much like the last one, the ball goes straight up and goes over the head of the players. So we should have shut this down for 3 reasons: encroachment by R, an illegal kicking formation, and an illegal pop-up kick. Now, this was an end of the game situation, so this crew was in good position to rule on all of these, and unfortunately, much like the onside kick before, missed all 3 of these fouls. Well, that is it for this week's Clips of the Week. Best of luck to all of the officials working in the playoffs and to all of the teams that qualify. We hope everyone has a great postseason. Again, we'll be back next week with another edition of the Clips of the Week, postseason edition. Thank you.